Yo guys, what is up? Max in our first Descendant video, and last night we got one of the craziest streams from the devs that they've ever done. The stream was almost 3.5 hours of a ton of new information, not only on what's going to be happening in Season 2, but they also talked about Season 3 and even Season 4 information. My video breakdown was going to be so long that I've decided to split it into two parts. This is going to be a deep dive into Keelan's skills, Ultimate Sharen, and the new gameplay of her, as well as the new fire female descendant that was announced that's going to be dropping in Season 3. I hope you guys enjoy the breakdown. This is going to be part one of a two-part video breaking down everything you need to know. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get right into it. So the very first thing that the dev showed off was Keelan. He is going to be a toxic fusion singular type descendant, and his passive skill reads as erosion. Increase acidification value when using a skill and grants the deception effect to self after a certain number of uses. If non-combat state is maintained, acidification value and the deception value effect are removed. So you want to be in combat to keep up your buffs. As you can see, the effect removal is if you're not in combat for 10 seconds. But while you're using your abilities, you're going to get max stacks of agility, up to 4 stacks. Each single stack gives you 28% increased modifier, which is disgusting, and 12% movement speed. So this character is going to be hitting hard and also getting a ton of movement speed, which is very cool. His next ability is Void Corrosion. So you fire Void Corrosion, it applies acidic corrosion, and if an enemy is already affected by acidic corrosion, you deal extra damage. The projectile itself can fire up to 10 different projectiles, each dealing 245% skill damage. And if they are already afflicted by your damage, you're going to get 120% more multiplier. And acidic erosion stacks up to 5 stacks, and its skill power dot is 4.6. Seems like this character is going to be dotting enemies, but the dot is more for buffing up your skill damage rather than dealing dot damage to kill enemies like Freyna. So that's kind of the big difference between this character and a character like Freyna, is your dots are going to amplify the damage that you're dealing, but you're not really killing enemies with your dots as much. His second ability is Onslaught, which is a dash. There's a ton of stuff here to read, but basically you're dashing through enemies. You can knock them back, and it applies an explosion at the end of the dash, which applies acidic erosion. So you can apply your one's debuff from your second ability as well. Each pierced enemy reduces the current stack cooldown of Onslaught by a certain amount. So if you're hitting numerous enemies with this, you're going to get cooldown back, and you get max of 5 stacks with this. As you can see, this skill hits pretty hard with a 797 pierce damage multiplier, and your burst damage at the end of the dash is 876. So if you're hitting enemies with the pierce and the explosion, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage, and it seems like if they have acidic erosion on them, you're going to get another 146 multiplier on top of that. So you're going to be able to use this dash skill 5 times and get cooldown on it, but it's also going to be hitting really hard. It sounds really strong. This off the bat sounds like one of his strongest abilities. His third ability is called Septic Gust, which deals damage to enemies within range and inflicts acidic decay. If enemies within range are inflicted with acidic decay, it inflicts blood rot. Blood rot explodes, dealing damage to the target and enemies within range. So this skill's kind of a little bit of a AoE nuke, it seems. So if you click the skill, you're going to get 540 multiplier. You're going to get more stacks of acidic erosion, but the blood rot explosion, I don't know if you could scale on this down, but it's got a 422% damage multiplier. Looks like this guy is just dripping with a bunch of damage. It is important to note, though, that this has a 60-second cooldown, which is obviously pretty large. So it doesn't sound like this is a skill you're going to be using all that often. His fourth ability is called Tremor, which if enemies are within range, have acidic decay, you deal damage proportional to the amount of acidic decay stacks. And if there are no enemies within range or they don't have acidic decay, it increases the amount of Onslaught stacks. Onslaught is your second ability. And so you can have up to 5 stacks of acidic erosion, which you get 1,700 skill power per stack. So 1,700 times 5 is going to be the damage that you're dealing to enemies that have these stacks. And if, once again, there's no enemies, you just get 3 of your dashes back, which is also a very high damage ability. This seems like your biggest kind of big damage nuke, and you're going to be using all of your other abilities to stack all of these buffs on things. This all sounds kind of insane. It does sound like Keelan's going to be a much better Descendant for harder content, because obviously if you're one-tapping everything, you're not going to be able to build up all of these stacks and detonate these huge nukes. You're going to want things that are like surviving a little bit longer to really detonate all these big damage abilities. So it sounds like he's going to really shine in harder content, and we are getting a lot of new hard content with this update in Season 2, so looks really good to me. The next thing we get to talk about is Ultimate Sharen. Now, there's a few really interesting things happening with Ultimate Sharen. First off, the devs announced that there's going to be a handful of Descendants getting a buff/rework, and among those Descendants was Viessa, Valby, Sharen, and Luna, and Jaber. Now, this is scheduled for the second part of the season, so Sharon's going to launch. She's going to have her new Transcendent modules, and then it sounds like she's going to be getting another buff afterwards. I'm not too worried about it, though, because her new Transcendent modules look a bit insane. So she's got 2 new Transcendent modules. Both have different effects. The first one is going to allow you to like transform your 4th ability, which you can kind of see what's happening on screen there, where you're able to do this like kind of flip attack where you send out short swords in a 360-degree radius, and every single time that you crit with one of these short swords, you're able to lower the cooldown of your 4th ability. And they said that you should be able to spam this. It looks like it was doing pretty decent damage, nothing too crazy. Obviously, the modifier values on her 4th ability are not great, but we saw some like crits for like 400k, and you're doing it like in an AoE like every second or two. The cooldown was basically an instant refund, and you could pair it with ambush to get even more damage. So that was actually looking very solid. The next thing that was really cool is her new Transcendent module that allows for infinite stealth. Now, there's a few things going on with this module. The first is that it's going to change your 3rd ability. I believe it's called like Shock Nuts. And normally that ability is used to stun enemies, but with this Transcendent module, you're going to be able to turn it into a damage ability. They did confirm that this is going to change its skill type tag from Dimension to Fusion. So for Sharen, you are going to want an electric fusion reactor. But this attack is hitting for like 2.3 million on enemies in an AoE, and obviously instantly resetting your stealth when you do that. So it looked really easy to just get your stealth over and over again. And the other thing that they talked about with Sharen is her filling a like kind of role, because outposts in Season 2 are getting changed, and the rewards from outposts are getting moved. Not moved, but you can also get them from like the hard infiltrations. Sharon's role as an outpost farmer is going to be lessened, but there's a lot of new traps, drones, lasers, and a lot of different things that are going to slow down your progression in these like abyssal dungeons that they're adding. And so Sharon's ability to basically just run through all of the lasers seems like it's going to be pretty nice if you're trying to get through this like dungeon faster. And they did note that if you beat the dungeon faster, you actually get better rewards. In my like second video that I'm gonna make talking about this update, they kind of mentioned some like 4 tiers of rewards that are based on your clear speed. So having a character that can like, you know, avoid some of the amount of enemies and traps and things that are going to get thrown at you sounds like it might be really helpful. I figured I would just make this the Descendant video because it makes more sense to have all the Descendant information grouped up into one thing and then everything else. But they did talk about Ines Rhea, who is also launching in January. She's going to be the electric female Descendant. This isn't any new like news. And they kind of just doubled down on her like ability to do AoE damage. They did mention that like, you know, she's going to be competing with Bunny for the like electrical AoE, but that there's different areas where you would prefer to use Ines Rhea, and the devs and the like focus group testers have really enjoyed using her. We didn't really get much more information about that, but we did get a lot of information about the new Descendant that's coming named Serena. Now, Serena is going to be our first ever fire female character, and she's gonna be quite different because she's going to be an ancestor descendant. They didn't fully break down what this meant, but they said that she's gonna have like ancestral archie powers, but also like current archie powers. Everyone in the chat was freaking out that she was going to be a grandma descendant, which I think would be actually pretty sick. But they did confirm that she's going to be like normal age or the same age as all of our current descendants, and she's going to be gun focused. She's not going to be an ability focused fire descendant. She's going to be gun focused, and the thing that sets her really apart is her ability to basically fly. I'm imagining this is going to have to do with something like heat rises. She's going to be able to cast abilities and hover, but while she's hovering and while she's flying around, she's going to deal more damage with her guns. Sounds really cool. I'm sure you can come up with some cool builds with her with like rocket launchers or something to just carpet bomb below you, like gun version of Kyle. But that is going to be the newest Descendant, which is coming out in the next update, which they're calling a next update rather than Season 3 because of the amount of content that's coming in. Like, Season 3 is going to be more akin to, like, an expansion, is what it sounded like, and I'll have a full video detailing everything here. But I did want to mention that Serena is going to be our newest Descendant coming out probably in March. She's going to be a fire female. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. I will have like part 2 out that is talking about a ton more things. I just didn't want this video to be an hour long, so I decided to split it up into the Descendants and then basically everything else. So I hope you guys enjoyed the vid. I will catch y'all in the next one. Should be out later today, and take care. Peace.